I've never been the type to suspect my wife, Jessica, of cheating on me. We'd been together for over 5 years, and honestly, I thought we were solid. Sure, she had her bitchy moments. She's the kind of girl who can talk her way out of any situation with a smart-ass comment, and she's always been a little manipulative when she doesn't get her way. But I figured that was just her personality, nothing more. That is, until a few weeks ago when all the signs started piling up. It started small. She'd come home later than usual, claiming it was work or some girl's night out. But her phone started acting weird. She'd hide it when I came into the room, and her texts suddenly seemed more guarded. I noticed she was spending a lot of time on her laptop, more than usual, and she'd brush it off when I asked what she was doing. She'd say, just browsing, or nothing, just some online shopping. But her tone was defensive, and her eyes darted around like she was hiding something. I also caught her in little lies, like the time she said she was at her friend's place, but her scent smelled like perfume from some dude's cologne, not her friend. Things took a turn when I found my neural interface calibrator missing. That device isn't just some gadget. It's crucial for my work on the emotional regulation implant I'm testing. Without it, I can't properly calibrate my effective response mapping sessions. I've been working on this project for months, and I knew Jessica was jealous or annoyed that I was so absorbed in the research. But I never imagined she'd actually try to sabotage it. Then I found out she'd been sneaking around with someone from her work, by the name of Kyle, who's an engineer at her company. What really got me was the way she acted when I confronted her about it. I'd come home early one day, unannounced, and walked into her office only to find her with her hand on Kyle's lap, clearly caught off guard. The look in her eyes was priceless, like she thought she could lie her way out of any situation. I saw the way she looked at him, like she was enjoying the thrill of the secret, the danger. That's when I realized how deep her deception went. The thing is, Jessica's the kind of girl who's always been bitchy. She's manipulative, she lies with a smile, and she's got this way of twisting everything to her advantage. But I never thought she'd cheat on me, especially not with some guy from her work who she used to complain about because he was annoying. Now it all made sense. She'd been sneaking around behind my back, risking everything, my project, our relationship, everything we built. After that, I started digging deeper. I went through her phone, her emails, her social media accounts. What I found was worse than I expected. There were messages, flirty, suggestive messages that she'd sent during late nights when I was sleeping. She'd even arranged to meet him at some hotel downtown. I saw the pictures she sent him. She looked so confident, so goddamn smug. They'd been doing this for a while. I felt sick, like I'd been punched in the stomach. My mind kept racing, trying to process how she could betray me like this, how she could lie straight to my face and smile while doing it. It was like I had been living with a stranger all along. She'd always been bitchy, yes, but I never thought she was capable of such outright betrayal. When I finally confronted her again, she denied everything at first. She told me I was paranoid, that it was all in my head. She said I was just jealous, that Kyle was just a friend, and that I was overreacting because I was insecure. She looked me straight in the eyes and lied flat out, like she didn't care about the damage she was doing. That's when I knew I couldn't stay with her. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak, like my entire world was crumbling. It was one thing to suspect. It was another to find undeniable proof. The betrayal hit me hard, and I knew I had to do something. But I wasn't sure what yet. All I knew was I'd been played for a fool, and Jessica's bitchy, manipulative side had just turned into outright cruelty. After I found out everything, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying that moment I caught her in her office. The shock, the anger, the feeling of being duped by someone I once loved. I was furious, but beneath that, I also felt a deep sadness. I mean, how could she do this? How could she lie so easily, knowing what was at stake? I put so much into this project, into us, and then she just throws it all away for some quick sex with Kyle. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was intellectual, personal, everything. I felt like a fool for trusting her, for believing in her bitchy, manipulative exterior that I'd always thought was just her personality, not a mask for something darker. I decided I couldn't just let this go. I needed a plan, a way to get back at her to make her see what she'd done. I started by collecting evidence, screenshots of the messages, the emails, photos from her hotel meetup. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that I wasn't some naive fool, blissfully unaware. But I also knew that if I just confronted her with this stuff, she'd deny everything or turn it around on me. That's when I decided I had to be more strategic. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling, humiliated, betrayed, powerless. I needed her to realize that messing around with Kyle and risking my project was the last thing she should have done. The first step was to make her think I was still clueless, to keep her talking, to bait her into revealing more. I started acting normal, acting like I hadn't found out. I'd come home, act like I was unaware of her late nights, her secret phone calls. I even played nice, just enough to keep her talking. Meanwhile, I was secretly planning my move. I started talking to some of my friends who are familiar with my project, asking for advice on how to best destroy her credibility, her reputation, if it came to that. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her betrayal, and I wanted her to understand that I was serious about getting revenge. She, of course, kept lying. She said she was just going out with her girlfriends. She insisted Kyle was just a friend, that I was overreacting because I was insecure. But every time she said that, I saw her eyes flicker. She was trying to hide something. I could tell she was scared, but she was also stubborn. She's the kind of woman who never admits she's wrong, who doubles down on her lies because she thinks she's smarter than everyone else. That's part of her bitchy attitude. She's never been one to take responsibility. I'd seen her do this so many times before, but this was on a whole new level. I started planting little clues. I sent her a fake message from Kyle pretending I'd gotten hold of her phone, hinting that I knew about the hotel. I wanted her to think she was close to being caught, to get paranoid. The idea was to make her slip up, to push her into a corner so she'd reveal more. It worked. I could see her growing more nervous, more defensive. She'd snap at me for asking questions, accuse me of reading too much into things, but I knew I was on the right track. I could feel the satisfaction building, knowing that I was getting closer to exposing her true nature. Meanwhile, I also started talking to a lawyer, just small consultations, but enough to know what my options were if I decided to go through with a divorce or some sort of revenge. I wasn't planning anything reckless yet, but I wanted to be prepared. Jessica's bitchy side was enough to enrage me, but her lying and cheating pushed me into a corner where I was starting to think about how I could make her pay. I knew I wouldn't just walk away from this without consequences. If she thought she was going to get away with ruining my project, my trust, my life, she had another thing coming. The weird thing was, I was also starting to feel guilty. Not for her cheating, hell, that was her choice, but for how much I was starting to obsess over it. Every glance at her phone, every suspicious look she gave me just fed my anger. I'd never been like this before. I'd always been a calm guy, but now, every moment I spent trying to catch her or figure out what she was up to felt like I was losing control. Still, I knew I couldn't let this slide. Not after everything she'd done. The betrayal had cut too deep, and I was now fully committed to exposing her for what she was, someone who'd risked everything for some meaningless sex and a little power game. And so I kept my cool, kept pretending everything was normal, while secretly preparing my next move. I was playing a long game now, waiting for her to slip up again, to make one more mistake that would finally prove she wasn't the woman I thought I married. I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not without a fight. So I kept up the act for a few more days, pretending to be clueless while I watched her every move. It was exhausting, honestly. Every moment of silence, every glance she threw my way, I was trying to read her like an open book. I noticed she was more jittery, more defensive than usual. She'd snap at me over small things, and her lies became more transparent. Still, I held my composure, waiting for the right moment to strike. I knew she'd slip up eventually, and I wanted to be ready for that. One afternoon, I came home early from work, just to see what she'd do. I arranged for someone to plant a bug in her phone so I could listen in on her calls without her knowing. I wasn't proud of that move, but when you've been betrayed so openly, the line between right and wrong gets blurred pretty fast. As I sat in the corner of the living room, I heard her on the phone with Kyle. She was laughing, joking, and talking about meeting up again. The way she casually dismissed me in her tone, like I was some inconvenience, made my blood boil. I listened for a while, soaking in every word, every lie she told him about me. The damage was done. I had all the proof I needed now. That night, I decided it was time for the confrontation. I didn't want to drag it out anymore. I wanted her to know I was onto her, that I had the upper hand. When she came home, I was waiting in the living room, my arms crossed, looking calm but furious. She looked surprised, caught off guard. I asked her straight out, "Jessica, who is Kyle to you? Because I've got the recordings, the messages, and I saw you with him. Don't lie to me anymore." Her face twisted into a sneer. "Oh, so now you're spying on me? That's just pathetic. You think you're some kind of detective now." I kept my voice steady. "No, I just wanted the truth, and I got it. You've been lying to my face for months. Tell me, are you sleeping with him?" She rolled her eyes and scoffed. "I don't know what you're talking about. You're paranoid. Maybe you're the one cheating, huh?" She was trying to turn it around as usual, dragging me into her bitchy games, but I wasn't falling for it. I pulled out the recordings, my phone showing her voice messages from Kyle, her texts, the hotel reservation. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked genuinely shaken. She tried to deny everything, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that Kyle was just a friend, and I was reading too much into their conversations. But I just looked at her and said, "Save it, I know the truth. I know you've been cheating on me, risking everything, my project, our relationship, for some quick sex with Kyle, and I'm done being played like this." Her bitchy attitude flickered for a second, replaced by pure rage. She spat back, "You don't get to judge me. I'm tired of your controlling bullshit. If you're so upset, maybe I should just leave. Maybe Kyle's the best thing that ever happened to me." That was the moment I realized I'd been pushed too far. The betrayal wasn't just a hurt, it was a slap in the face, a slap that made me see red. I wanted to hurt her, to make her feel what I was feeling. Not physically, thankfully, I'm not that kind, but emotionally. I needed her to understand that betraying me, risking everything, wasn't going to go unpunished. I told her I was done trying to fix this, done pretending I didn't know the truth, and that I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. Her laugh was bitter and cold. "Good luck with that. You're nothing but a jealous control freak. You think you can ruin me with your stupid experiments and your stupid feelings? Please. I'll do what I want, and if that means leaving you, so be it." I felt my fists tighten, but I kept calm. Inside, I was seething. I realized that I'd been blind, that I'd trusted her because I loved her, but love doesn't mean you stay stupid. It means knowing when someone's toxic and walking away. But I wasn't just going to walk away empty-handed. I had plans now, bigger plans. She thought she had me fooled, that she could just lie and dismiss everything. Well, I was going to prove her wrong. She'd never see it coming. That night I started drafting my next moves. I wasn't just going to leave her, I was going to make sure she paid for what she'd done, one way or another. She'd played her game, but I was about to turn the tables. I knew that once I made my move, her bitchy, manipulative side would be all she had left, and I was prepared for that. I had no illusions anymore, just a desire to make her regret ever messing with me. The next few days were a blur of planning and tension. Every moment I wasn't at work or with the people I'd consulted about legal and technical options, I was watching her. Jessica's bitchiness was on full display, snapping at me for the smallest things, throwing fits if I questioned her, but underneath all that, I could see the cracks in her facade. She was scared, no doubt. She knew I had the evidence, and I think she realized I was serious about making her pay. The fact that she was so aggressive, so dismissive of everything I brought up, only pushed me further, fueling my resolve. I decided I needed something more concrete, something that would hit her hard, something she couldn't deny or spin her way out of. That's when I set up a sting. I arranged with a friend to plant a hidden camera in our bedroom, aimed directly at the bed. I knew she was planning to meet Kyle again, probably at some hotel, and this would be the perfect way to catch her red-handed. It was risky, sure, but I wanted undeniable proof. I wanted her to see that I was willing to do whatever it took. I stayed up late that night, anxiously waiting for her to leave, then I activated the camera. The footage was clear, Jessica sneaking out after I'd fallen asleep, meeting Kyle at that hotel downtown, laughing and kissing like they had no care in the world. Seeing her in action, so brazen and confident, was like a punch to the stomach, but it also confirmed everything I already suspected. She'd been cheating on me for months, risking not just my trust but my entire project, my career, everything. I felt betrayed on every level. That footage was my ace, proof she couldn't deny, no matter how much she spun her lies. With this evidence in hand, I knew it was time for one last confrontation. I waited until she came home that night, her face flushed from the excitement of her secret rendezvous. I sat on the couch calm, but my eyes were cold. She looked at me, her bitchy smirk flickering, and I just nodded toward the camera feed on my phone. "I know everything, Jessica. I saw you sneaking out meeting Kyle. I've got the footage. You can deny it all you want, but I know the truth now. How long has this been going on?" She froze, her mouth opening to lie again, but I cut her off. "Don't bother, I've got the proof. Your lies are worthless now." Her face drained of color. She tried to brush it off, saying I was paranoid, that I was just jealous, that Kyle was just a friend. But the look in her eyes said otherwise. I could see her panic that I was finally onto her. I told her I was done with the games, that I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I wanted her to understand that her manipulative, bitchy attitude had finally backfired, that her reckless affair was going to cost her everything, her relationship with me, her job, her reputation, if I decided to go that route. I made it clear I wasn't just angry, I was furious. Furious at her lies, her betrayal, her selfishness. Her reaction was classic Jessica, angry, dismissive, trying to turn the situation around on me. "You're just jealous," she spat. "You've got some weird obsession with your stupid project. Maybe I should just leave then, see how you handle that." She looked like she wanted to scream, her face red with rage and fear, but I knew I had her cornered. There was no more running from the truth. I told her I was done playing her game, that she had crossed a line she couldn't come back from. I explained I needed some space to think, to decide what to do next. I told her she'd better start packing because I wasn't going to tolerate her betrayal anymore. She yelled back, calling me insecure, controlling, basically trying to tear me down. But I wasn't listening anymore. I had what I needed, and I was already planning my next steps. That night I stayed up late, drafting everything, my exit plan, the ways I could make her regret her choices, and how I could protect my work and reputation. I knew I had to be careful. I didn't want her to spin things to make me look bad. But I was determined. This was just the beginning. Jessica's bitchy, manipulative side had now been exposed for what it was, and I was ready to show her that her lies, her cheating, her reckless attitude, none of it was going to go unpunished. I could feel the storm brewing, and I knew I wasn't going to stop until she felt the full weight of what she'd done to me. The days that followed were like a storm inside my head. I was walking around in a fog, but I also felt strangely clear. I knew what I had to do. Jessica, of course, kept up her bitchy attitude, acting like nothing had changed, throwing her tantrums over little things, but it was all a front. Deep down, she was panicking. I could see it in her eyes whenever she thought I wasn't looking. That's what fueled me even more, knowing I was finally in control, even if she pretended to be the one. Calling shots. I started taking steps to finalize everything. I contacted a divorce lawyer just to get an idea of what my options were. I wanted to be prepared for her reaction, which I knew would be volatile. Jessica's the type who'd lash out, accuse me of being crazy, blame me for everything. She'd try to paint herself as the victim, but I wasn't having it anymore. My focus was on shutting her down, making sure she couldn't manipulate her way out of this mess. Meanwhile, I also devised a way to make her feel the consequences of her actions, without risking legal trouble or crossing lines. I set up a detailed plan to leak her infidelity to her boss and friends. Not the explicit stuff, but enough to damage her reputation at work. I wanted her to realize that her actions had repercussions, that by cheating and lying, she was not just risking me but also her entire life. It would be a calculated move, gradual, relentless, just enough to make her sweat but not so much that she'd see it coming. I also kept the footage from the hotel and her private messages close. I was ready to use it if She tried to deny everything, or worse, if she went rogue. Jessica's the type to double down. Her bitchy side is her armor, so I had to be prepared for her to escalate. I knew she'd try to manipulate everyone around her, so I started planning how to protect myself emotionally and professionally. One evening, I caught her in a rare moment of vulnerability. She was crying angry tears, insisting she hadn't done anything wrong, that I was just paranoid. She kept saying I was controlling and insecure, that she didn't need my approval to do what she wanted. That was the moment I realized she'd never admit to what she'd done. She was never going to own up. Instead, she'd keep lying, keep manipulating, until she was backed into a corner with no way out. That's when I decided I'd push her even further, just enough to make her realize she was no longer in control. I started pushing her to confront her feelings, to see that her actions had consequences. I told her straight up that I knew everything, every message, every meetup, and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I threw her tone, her own manipulation, right back at her. You're the one who lied to me. You're the one who risked everything for a quick fuck, but I'm not going to let you destroy what's left of us. You want to cheat, fine, but don't expect me to just roll over and accept it like some doormat. The bitchy glare she shot me was cold, but I could see the wheels turning. She knew she'd pushed her luck too far. That realization made me feel a strange sense of power. I was finally in the driver's seat. Every lie she told, every sneaky meeting, each one of those was a brick in the wall I was building around her, and she didn't even realize it yet. That night, I stayed up again, going over every detail. My next move, how to make her suffer just enough, not ruin her completely, but enough to make her see that her choices had consequences. I was tired, but I didn't care. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I was also angry, and I was going to make sure she knew exactly what she'd lost. She thought she could manipulate me forever, but I was done playing her stupid little game. Now, it was time to take control, and I was going to do whatever it took to end this on my terms. The only thing left was to wait for her next move, and I was ready. The final step came sooner than I thought. Jessica's behavior became more erratic, snapping at me over trivial things, trying to dismiss the evidence I had gathered, but I could see that she was unraveling. Her bitchy mask was cracking, and her lies were less convincing. I knew it was only a matter of time before she snapped completely. I had already scheduled the leak of her infidelity to her boss and some key friends, ensuring her reputation would take a hit. She could lie all she wanted, but my proof was irrefutable. One evening, I confronted her again, this time with everything laid out on the table. I told her I had enough of the lies, enough of the betrayal. I told her I knew about her meetings with Kyle, her secret texts, her hotel rendezvous. I played the recordings right in front of her. Watching her face change from defiance to panic was satisfying. She tried to spin her usual bullshit, claiming I was crazy, that she'd never cheated, that I was paranoid. But I just sat there calmly watching her squirm. That was the moment I realized I didn't want to fight her anymore. I wanted her out of my life, and I wanted her to face what she'd done. I told her it was over, that I was leaving, and that I was going to take steps to protect myself and my project. She yelled, calling me insecure and controlling, trying to make herself the victim. But I saw through it all. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, it was all just a smokescreen for her guilt and her cowardice. I knew I'd win this fight, not just because I had the evidence, but because I finally saw her for what she truly was. The next day, I moved out. I didn't want to drag things out anymore. I took what I needed, my work, my dignity, and left her behind. I knew she'd try to spin this to her advantage, but I didn't care anymore. I'd done everything I could to protect myself and my future. I finally felt free, even if the pain still lingered. The trust was broken, and the scars would take time to heal, but I'd come out stronger. Looking back, I realize what I've learned from all this is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who people really are. Jessica's bitchy, manipulative nature was just waiting to surface. I was naive to think she was anything else. The experience taught me to trust my instincts, to be more cautious about who I let into my life, and to never underestimate how far someone will go when they're cornered. Now, I focus on rebuilding, on my work, on myself. I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to carry this pain forever. Sometimes you have to lose in order to find clarity. Jessica's cheating forced me to face the truth about her, about myself, and about what I really want from life. I'm better for it, even if it hurts like hell to admit that. To anyone reading this, just know, betrayal happens and it hurts like hell, but it also makes you stronger if you let it. Trust your gut, watch for the signs, and don't be afraid to walk away if someone's not worth it. Sometimes, the most painful lessons are the ones that teach us to value ourselves more.